Good afternoon. Let me begin with the question. If humanity disappeared tomorrow, would anything meaningful be lost and why? Would the universe simply continue, stars burning, oceans moving, unchanged, or would something irreplaceable vanish with us? Throughout history, humans across cultures have wrestled with this question. Ancient civilizations, religious traditions, philosophers, and scientists have all tried to answer it in different ways. Today I want to explore one central question. What is the purpose of humanity? I will examine three major perspectives: religious perspective, philosophical and existential perspectives, scientific and humanistic perspectives. Then I will compare them, examine critiques, and explain which answer I find the most convincing and why. You might be thinking, why does this question matter? This question is not abstract or irrelevant. It shapes everything. Beliefs about humanity's purpose influence how we define morality, how we structure laws, how we treat one another, how we understand dignity, how we define success, and how we face suffering and death. If humanity has a divine purpose, then life has an objective meaning. If humanity creates its own purpose, then meaning is self-determined. If humanity's purpose is survival or progress, then well-being and development become central values. This question matters because it influences how we live and what we know. Next, let's shift our focus over to religious perspectives. Many religious traditions teach that humanity has a divinely given purpose. In Christianity, especially within the Catholic tradition, the purpose of humanity is to know, love, and serve God, ultimately to share eternal life with Him. According to thinkers like Thomas Aquinas, human beings are created with intellect and will so that they may freely choose God themselves. Aquinas argues that our ultimate end, our telos, is union with God, often described as the beatific vision. Similarly, Augustine of Hippo famously wrote that our hearts are relentless until they rest in God. In this view, the human desire for meaning, truth, and love points towards something eternal. Under Catholic teaching, human dignity is inherent because humans are made in the image of God. Moral law reflects divine wisdom, and purpose is objective, not invented. This framework offers stability, moral grounding, and a shared narrative. However, critics argue that religious purpose depends on faith. Not everyone accepts divine revelation, and religious disagreement can create division. Still, for believers, religion provides a coherent and transcendent answer to humanity's purpose. Moving forward, philosophical and existential views is something I'd like to touch on. In contrast, existential philosophers argue that humanity has no predetermined purpose. Jean-Paul Sartre famously declared that existence precedes essence. This means that humans first exist and only afterward define themselves through choices. Similarly, Albert Camus described life as fundamentally absurd. Humans searching for meaning in a universe that offers no clear answers. From this perspective, there is no built-in cosmic purpose. Meaning is created individually, and responsibility rests entirely on the individual. This view emphasizes freedom, authenticity, and personal responsibility. However, critiques argue existentialism can drift towards nihilism, this belief that nothing ultimately matters. If meaning is entirely self-centered, can morality become relative? Is one person's purpose better than another's? Supporters respond that existentialism doesn't deny meaning, it demands courage. It challenges individuals to take responsibility for constructing meaningful lives. Finally, I'd like to touch on scientific and humanistic views. Scientific and humanistic perspectives approach the question differently. From a biological standpoint, humanity's quote-unquote purpose might simply be survival and reproduction as described by the evolutionary theory. Organisms evolve to pass on genes. Charles Darwin did not argue that evolution gives us moral purpose, but his theory explains how humans develop through natural selection. Humanistic thinkers such as Carl Rogers suggest that humans' purpose may involve growth, self-actualization, and improving well-being. Under a scientific humanist framework, purpose may be improving the quality of life. Moral systems evolve to promote cooperation, and progress and knowledge become central values. This view has its strengths. It is grounded in observational evidence. It avoids, reliance on supernatural claims, and it emphasizes measurable human flourishing. However, critics argue it can reduce humanity to biology and utility. If our purpose in life is to survive, does that fully explain love, sacrifice, art, or spirituality? Supporters respond that even if purpose arises naturally, it can still be profound. Collective progress and well being may be meaningful without requiring divine origins. Now let's compare the answers. Religious perspective has a purpose given by God, meaning is objective, morality is grounded in divine law. But for existential perspective, there is no predetermined purpose. Meaning is self-created, and freedom is central. In terms of scientific/humanistic perspective, purpose may arise from biology or social development. Meaning relates to well-being and progress, and morality evolves through cooperation. Each answers differently. Is meaning discovered or created? Is morality objective or constructed? Is purpose cosmic or human-centered? In terms of critiques and arguments, there's one for every single one of these views. For starters, a critique on religion, it depends on faith. It cannot be, actually proven. A counter, it offers a stable moral structure and a shared framework for dignity and justice. Next, existential view, a critique for it is it risks moral relativism or nihilism. A counter, it empowers individuals to live authentically and take responsibility for their lives. A critique for scientific views can be it reduces humans to just biology. And a good counter is it grounds purpose in observable reality and a collective human flourishing. No views without tension. Each requires assumptions, whether about God, freedom, or just the nature of reality. So now you might be thinking, who is this guy telling us all these different views? What does he believe in? My preferred answer comes from Catholic Christianity. I believe that the purpose of humanity is to know, love, serve God, and ultimately die and share eternity with Him in heaven. I'm drawn to this view because, I've lived life for 20 years, and the lowest I've ever felt in my life is when I was the furthest away from my religion. My religion gives me, morality beyond personal opinion. It gives me a reason to live and, love. It explains the deep human longing for transcendence. There's so much that trails back to Christianity and, being Catholic. It's a crazy history, and, as a believer, I believe in living life through Christ. It's the true fulfillment of human purpose. Who doesn't want to know their Creator? Who doesn't want a relationship with the person that created everything around us? Like, something that I always think about consistently, and, I talk to my friends about it, is, if we, as, individuals living on Earth, were placed a centimeter to the right or a centimeter to the left, humanity as we know it, the planet we live in, and the cities we go to, and the countries, we stay in, none of it would exist. And, everything starts with something. And I believe that, our Maker, having a relationship with our Maker, having a relationship with God, living life through Christ is the most important thing to do as a human being. However, I also recognize that this question continues across cultures and generations. Let me return to the question I began with. If humanity disappeared tomorrow, would anything meaningful be lost? If humanity's purpose is divinely given, then something eternally significant would be lost. If purpose is self-created, then the loss would depend on the meanings we built. If purpose is survival and progress, then evolution would simply continue without us. Perhaps the most important part is not just the answer, but the fact that humanity keeps asking. If humanity's purpose isn't given to us, then what will we choose it to be? Thank you so much for listening. Finally, I'd like to end this presentation with answering the last two questions you provided us. What I did well throughout this process was I think I did well in organizing the presentation clearly, according to the required structure. Each perspective is given its own section, and I fairly explain the strengths and critiques of, each before presenting my preferred view. I also believe I clearly explained why the question matters, connecting, it to morality, dignity, and daily life. I was able to do this well because I personally care about this topic and, have thought about it beyond just academic requirements. It's something I think about all the time. And for the final question, what I can improve by including more detailed scholarly engagement, such as deeper contextual analysis or more direct quotations from philosophers. I could also strengthen the scientific section by incorporating more recent peer-reviewed research on evolutionary psychology or secular humanism. To improve, I would add more direct citations from academic journals, clarify transitions between sections to make the flow even smoother, possibly incorporate visuals such as historical artwork, philosophical quotes, or data charts to strengthen the multimedia component. But yeah, thank you so much for listening to my presentation, and I hope you enjoyed it.